What if I told you that the most infamous traitor in history never died? What if Judas Iscariot, the man who sold the Son of God for 30 pieces of silver, still walks among us, condemned not to hell, but to something infinitely worse: immortality? For 2,000 years, we've been taught that Judas hanged himself in a field of blood, consumed by guilt. But what if that death never happened? What if the kiss he gave Christ wasn't just a betrayal, but the seal of a much older, much darker pact? A pact that would turn him into the first of the accursed, an undead being condemned to drink the blood of the living to atone for a sin that can never be forgiven. In the 13th century, apocryphal manuscripts discovered in the monastery of St. Catherine in Sinai mentioned something disturbing. He who betrayed the Lamb found no rest on earth, nor in heaven, but wanders eternally in thirst, drinking the life of men as endless penance. Jerusalem, the year 33 of the Common Era, the night after the crucifixion. While the body of Christ lies in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, another body mysteriously disappears from the field of Haceldama, the field of blood, where Judas was said to have hanged himself. The first accounts emerge from the shadows of history, forbidden Gnostic writings, burned by the early church, whisper of a 13th apostle who did not die, but was transformed. The Gospel of Judas, discovered only in 1978 in Egypt, suggests something disturbing. Judas did not act out of greed, but by divine command. He was chosen to fulfill the most horrific role in human history. But chosen by whom? Let us leap to the year 325, the Council of Nicaea. Among the documents suppressed by the Church Fathers, there is mention of letters by Origen of Alexandria, one of the early Christian theologians. He writes of disturbing rumors coming from Cappadocia. Peasants found dead, pale, with 2 marks on their necks, and their bodies completely drained of blood. Witnesses spoke of a shadowy figure, dressed in ancient rags, who wept as he fed. One of the survivors, a shepherd named Theophilus, swore he saw the creature's face in the moonlight. He described eyes filled with eternal torment, and the creature whispered in Aramaic before vanishing, "I cannot die. I am not permitted to die." Centuries later, in 1197, a Cistercian monk named William of Newburgh documented something extraordinary in his Chronicle of England. He reported that in the region of Anatolia, present-day Turkey, inquisitors found an empty tomb with an inscription in ancient Greek. "Here lies not he who betrayed, for he cannot lie." When they opened the tomb, they found only 30 silver coins stained with fresh blood, blood that never clotted, as if it had been spilled at that very moment. And then, the true horror begins to unfold. Because those 30 coins were no ordinary payment. They were a bond, a contract, sealed not in ink, but in blood and eternity. 7th century Constantinople. The secret archives of the Ecumenical Patriarchate record a series of unexplained deaths that follow a disturbing pattern. Always on the eve of Easter. Always in places where betrayal or remorse have marked human lives. The victims are found exsanguinated, yet their faces show no signs of terror. They show peace, as if they had been freed from something. An Armenian priest named Gregory documents the first recorded encounter. He writes, "I saw with my own eyes the creature that should not exist. Its eyes were abysses of ancient guilt, and when it fed on the merchant who had betrayed his brother, it whispered words that froze my soul. Through your blood, I carry your betrayal with me, so that you may depart free." Gregory continues, "He does not kill out of hunger, he kills out of penance, as if each drop of blood he drinks were a desperate attempt to wash his own hands clean." Fast forward to the year 1242, During the medieval Inquisition, in a Benedictine monastery in the French Pyrenees, monks uncover something that defies all known theology. They exhume the bodies of executed criminals and heretics, only to find them impossibly preserved. Rosy skin, as if blood still flowed within. Hair and nails that had grown after death. And most disturbing of all, fresh blood dripping from their lips. Brother Bernard of Clairvaux, charged with the investigation, writes in his personal diary, now kept in the Vatican's secret archives. When we drove the stake through the heart of the fifth body, it opened its eyes. They were not the eyes of a demon. They were human eyes, filled with recognition and gratitude. And before true death claimed him, he whispered a name: Judas. The monks then uncovered the terrifying truth. These were no ordinary vampires. They were a lineage, a curse passed on through a kiss, just as Judas had kissed Christ. Each of them had betrayed someone they loved, and upon dying, they were found by him. They were transformed, not out of vengeance, but from twisted compassion. A crusader named Robert de Montfort recorded in 1271 after returning from Jerusalem. On the darkest night, near Bethany, our camp was visited by a hooded figure. He healed one of our men who was dying of fever, but the price was a single drop of blood. When I asked his name, he pulled back the hood. His face was that of someone who bore the weight of 1,000 lives. He said only, "I am he who cannot ask for forgiveness, so I seek to give it." The reports multiply through the centuries. Prague, 1389. Paris, 1562. Lisbon, 1755, after the Great Earthquake. Always the same pattern, a shadowy figure appearing in moments of immense human guilt, who feeds, yet also consoles, who kills, yet also redeems. And every account agrees on one chilling detail. When he drinks someone's blood, tears of blood stream from his eyes. As if each life he takes adds more weight to a cross he eternally bears upon his back. But the question that haunted medieval theologians remains. If Judas was turned into a vampire, who transformed him? What ancient entity had the power to curse or save the greatest traitor in history? And more importantly, what was the true purpose of this curse? Year 1746, Abbey of St. Gall, Switzerland. A secret meeting that should never have taken place. Summoned by Cardinal Giuseppe d'Avanzati, theologians, demonologists, and even a surviving representative of the Order of the Knights Templar gather to debate the unthinkable. The theological existence of Judas Iscariot as a vampire. Dom Augustin Calmet, the foremost scholar on vampirism in the 18th century and author of the treatise Dissertations on the apparitions of angels, demons, and spirits, and on vampires, opens the debate with a devastating statement. If the vampire exists, he is a direct affront to God himself, for he subverts the order of death and resurrection. But what if Judas is not an affront, but a tool? What if his transformation was not the devil's doing, but a divine punishment so perfect it disguises itself as a curse? Friar Ludovico Antonio Muratori, Italian historian and theologian, responds with a trembling voice, "Blasphemy. To suggest that God would create an undead being is to deny the entire doctrine of the resurrection. The vampire is the exclusive work of Satan, a profane imitation of the eternal life promised by Christ." But then a voice rises that silences all. It is Johann Christoph Harenberg, Protestant theologian and rationalist. Gentlemen, consider this. Judas betrayed Christ so that prophecy would be fulfilled. Without the betrayal, there would be no crucifixion. Without the crucifixion, there would be no resurrection. Without the resurrection, there would be no Christianity. Judas may have been the most faithful of the apostles, for he fulfilled the most horrific role so that human salvation could be made possible. And what if his transformation into a vampire is not punishment, but redemption? A way for him to continue serving a divine purpose, bearing the sins of those who betray, just as Christ bore the sins of all humanity. Cardinal Davanzati stands, pale. Then what are we suggesting? That there is a hierarchy of curses? That Judas is a different kind of creature, not a common vampire born of demonic possession, but something older, closer to the divine mystery itself? Dom Calmet responds slowly. We are suggesting something far more disturbing, Your Eminence. That perhaps Judas's vampirism is a form of walking purgatory. He cannot die because his penance has no end. He cannot stop feeding because each drop of blood is a prayer of atonement. He walks in darkness because he can no longer bear the light of the grace he helped bring into the world. An occultist present, Count Alessandro di Cagliostro, adds an even darker perspective. And what if Judas was transformed not by God, nor by the devil, but by something older than both? There are legends in Mesopotamia of blood-drinking beings that predate all Abrahamic religions. What if one of these primordial entities saw in Judas the perfect opportunity? A man consumed by remorse, willing to accept any form of existence that would allow him to continue paying for his sin. Friar Muratori whispers, defeated. Then we are not fighting a mere creature. We are fighting the very question that haunts all theology. Can there be redemption outside divine grace? Can the damned find salvation within their very curse? Cardinal Davanzati closes the meeting with words that would echo for centuries. If the dead walk, who's to say heaven remains closed? And if Judas still walks among us, drinking the blood of the living to sustain a life that should not exist, then what kind of hell is this that escapes the tombs? And worse, what kind of heaven is it that allows such horror as a form of redemption? The meeting is dissolved, the records are sealed, but the question remains, echoing through the ages. Does Judas seek redemption through darkness? Or is darkness the only redemption he will ever be allowed? Autumn of 1889, the abandoned monastery of Qumran on the shores of the Dead Sea. The same location where, decades later, the Dead Sea Scrolls would be discovered. But on this night, a man arrives alone, carrying only a lantern and a silver cross. His name is Father Matteo Ricci, a Vatican exorcist sent on a secret mission after decades of tracking reports of Judas's vampire. He does not come to destroy the creature. He comes to ask the question no one has dared ask in 2,000 years. Why do you still exist? The monastery is in ruins. Symbols erased by time cover the walls. The smell is of ancient earth, of burned parchment, of dried blood that has soaked into the stones for centuries. The lantern's light reveals something unsettling. Claw marks on the walls, as if someone had tried to scratch their way out of existence itself. Father Matteo descends into the crypt. Each step is not just a physical descent, but a spiritual one. He feels the weight of countless souls in that place, as if the stones themselves remember eternal torment. And then, in the center of the crypt, he sees not a monster, but a man kneeling in prayer. The figure has its back turned, clothed in rags that seem to span across eras, patches from 100 different civilizations. His hands are raised in silent supplication. Judas Iscariot, the priest's voice trembles. I come in the name of the Holy Church to understand what you are. The figure turns. His face is human, but bears the weight of 20 centuries. There is no malice there, only infinite exhaustion. His eyes are wells of pain no human being should be able to endure. What am I? The creature whispers in Aramaic. but the priest understands every word as if they were etched directly into his soul. I am the consequence. I am the question God asked humanity. How far does forgiveness go? Father Matteo takes a step forward, the cross trembling in his hand. You feed on the living. You kill. How can that be redemption? I do not kill the innocent, Father. I feed only on those who carry betrayal in their hearts. And when I drink their blood, I absorb their guilt. Each of their sins becomes mine. Each of their regrets adds to my eternal burden. They die in peace. I continue carrying the weight. The priest recoils, horrified. Then you're like Christ, carrying the sins of others? The creature rises, and his presence fills the entire crypt. No, his voice echoes like thunder. Christ carried sins to redeem. I carry sins because I cannot be redeemed. I am the shadow of salvation, Father. I am what happens when one cannot be forgiven, but also cannot be condemned. I am limbo made flesh. That night after the kiss, when I fled to Haceldama, I was not hanged. I was found by something ancient, something that existed before the fall, something that saw in me an opportunity to turn the greatest sin in history into an eternal penance. The 30 pieces of silver were not payment, Father. They were the price of my soul, but not to buy it, to rent it eternally. Each century, each decade, each night I feed, I pay a coin. And when the 30 are gone, they return, stained with fresh blood, and the cycle begins again. Father Matteo falls to his knees. Then you can't be saved? Ever. The creature steps closer, and for the first time, the priest sees tears of blood streaming from his eyes. I don't know, Father. Was I cursed or chosen? Am I demon or martyr? I've spent 2,000 years asking that question, and with each soul I free from its guilt, my own grows heavier. But I continue, because if there is a purpose to my existence, it is to ensure that those who betray can at least die in peace. Father Matteo raises the cross, but his hands tremble. I should destroy you, exorcise you, free you. The creature smiles sadly. You cannot destroy me, Father. I have tried 1,000 times. You cannot exorcise me, for I am not possessed. And you cannot free me, because this is not my prison. It is my purpose. Tell the church that Judas still walks. Tell them that redemption is not always light. Sometimes it is darkness willing to carry what the light cannot touch. And Father, pray for me. Not for my salvation, but that I remain strong enough to carry the weight of all those who will still betray. When Father Matteo Ricci returned to Rome 3 months later, his report was immediately sealed. He lived for another 42 years, but never again spoke Judas's name. On the night of his death in 1931, witnesses said he awoke screaming, "He's still there!" Still carrying. For all of us, 21st century, the age of reason, of science, of disbelief. But the reports have never ceased. They've only changed form. In 2003, after the invasion of Iraq, American soldiers reported inexplicable encounters in the ruins of ancient Babylon. A sergeant named James Corrigan wrote in his personal journal, "I saw a man in the shadows of a destroyed temple. He was comforting an orphaned Iraqi child, but when my flashlight hit his face, his eyes reflected centuries. He vanished, but the child was at peace, as if all her pain had been taken away." In 2011, during the Arab Spring, doctors in Cairo reported impossible cases. Protesters on the brink of death from bullet wounds, found healed by dawn, with only 2 marks on their necks, and confused accounts of having seen a man who cried while he drank. In 2019, in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, a local priest documented the appearance of a figure protecting children from violent drug traffickers. The victims were always found exsanguinated, but their faces bore expressions of relief, as if a burden had been lifted from their souls. The pattern remains. The creature has never changed. He still walks among us, still feeds, but only on those who carry betrayal, still weeps tears of blood, still searches for something he may never find. But the real question is not whether Judas exists. The real question is, what does his existence say about us? Because Judas Iscariot, the eternal vampire, is not merely a monster of the night. He is the darkest mirror of the human condition. He is the living proof that some sins are so deep, so raw, that neither divine forgiveness nor eternal damnation are enough. He exists in the limbo between grace and hell, carrying the weight of his own betrayal and the betrayals of countless others. The vampire is not merely the walking dead. He is the reflection of our own profane desire to live forever, even if it costs the soul. But Judas is something far more disturbing. He is the desire to pay forever, to never be forgiven, because forgiveness would be too light for the weight of what was done. He does not seek redemption through light. He seeks it through darkness, one drop of blood at a time, one sin absorbed at a time, one traitor freed at a time. And with every life he takes, he adds more weight to the invisible cross he carries on his back. Can a vampire achieve redemption? Or has Judas already understood something we mortals have yet to grasp? That redemption is not a destination, but an endless journey. That some of us are not meant to reach heaven or fall into hell, but to walk eternally between them, serving a purpose that transcends personal salvation. There are whispered legends in Orthodox monasteries in Greece that somewhere in the world there exists a book written in blood, upon pages of human skin. And in that book, Judas records every name, every sin he has absorbed, every betrayal he has carried. They say that when the final page is filled, when there is no space left for another name, then, and only then, will he be set free. But how many pages remain? How many betrayals must still come before humanity finally learns? How many more centuries must he walk? The answer is terrifying. As long as there are humans willing to betray those they love, Judas Iscariot will continue to exist. He is the eternal consequence of the first betrayal, the shadowed guardian of all those that followed. And perhaps, just perhaps, the true horror is not that he exists, but that we need him to exist. Because if Judas can carry the weight of his betrayal for 2,000 years, seeking some form of atonement in the shadows, then perhaps there is hope for us all, no matter how dark our guilt may be. And if they still exist, if Judas still walks among us, drinking the blood of traitors, carrying their guilt, then perhaps the true fear is not death. Perhaps it's what happens if you don't die. If you are condemned to carry your greatest sin, not for a lifetime, but for all eternity. Judas Iscariot still waits, still walks, still drinks, still weeps, and the 30 pieces of silver continue to return, stained with fresh blood, century after century, betrayal after betrayal. Redemption is not always light. Sometimes it is the darkness willing to carry what the light cannot touch.